There are seasons in life when we feel shattered, as though every dream has slipped through our fingers and every effort has ended in disappointment. Sometimes, the hardest truth we face is that in order to rebuild ourselves into who we were created to be, we must first break apart everything that is false, fragile, and temporary. I want to remind you today that brokenness is not the end. It is often the beginning of strength, renewal, and a destiny greater than what you could have ever imagined. I broke myself to rebuild myself. Not because I enjoyed the pain, not because I welcomed the struggle, but because I realized that the life I was living was built on shaky foundations. You cannot rise to the fullness of your purpose if your foundation is weak. Many times, we cling to habits, relationships, or ways of thinking that hold us back. Breaking yourself means choosing to let go of those things even when it hurts. It means surrendering your pride, your excuses, and your comfort zones so that you can build again with clarity, discipline, and faith. Think about a seed. Before it becomes a tree, it must first break. Hidden in the soil, unseen by the world, it cracks open, and only then does life spring forth. That is the same process for you and me. If we never go through the breaking, we will never see the blooming. Brokenness is not a curse. It is a sign that something new is being birthed. When I broke myself, I had to confront truths I didn't want to face. I had to admit that my strength alone was not enough, that my wisdom was not sufficient, that my path was leading me to emptiness. That kind of honesty is painful, but it is necessary. The rebuilding process begins when you strip away what is false and choose to build on what is eternal and true. Rebuilding yourself requires courage. Courage to start again when others have written you off. Courage to rise when you feel like staying down. Courage to believe in tomorrow when today feels unbearable. And with each step of rebuilding, you gain a new strength, a deeper wisdom, and a greater resilience. Let me tell you this, you are not defined by your breaking. You are defined by your rebuilding. The scars you carry are not marks of shame, but marks of survival, proof that you walked through the fire and came out refined. Every setback, every tear, every loss can be turned into the very material God uses to reconstruct your life into something stronger, something unshakable. So if you are in a season of breaking, do not despise it. See it as preparation. You are not being destroyed, you are being rebuilt. Your breaking is the soil where new life will grow. Your breaking is the training ground for your future strength. Rise from the pieces. Build yourself on faith, on integrity, on discipline, and on vision. Break what is weak within you, and you will discover the unstoppable strength that has been waiting to emerge. I broke myself to rebuild myself, and so can you. Your best days are not behind you, they are still ahead. Your brokenness is not the end of your story. It is the foundation of your greatest chapter. There comes a point in every life when you feel shattered, when it seems as though everything you worked for, everything you trusted in, or everything you believed about yourself has crumbled into pieces. In those moments, brokenness can feel like the end. It feels final, like nothing good could possibly emerge from such pain. But I stand here to tell you today, brokenness is not your ending. Brokenness is the very soil from which growth begins. It is the foundation upon which the strongest lives are built. When I say that brokenness is the foundation of growth, I mean that it is in our lowest and hardest moments that we are given the opportunity to rebuild ourselves into something stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Think about the seed in the ground. On the surface, it looks small and lifeless. But before it can push upward toward the light, it must first break open beneath the soil. If it never breaks, it never grows. In the same way, our own breaking often becomes the hidden miracle that produces our greatest growth. I know the fear that comes with being broken. The fear that says you'll never rise again, that your best days are behind you, that nothing of value can come from the pieces left scattered on the ground. But I want you to look at your brokenness differently. What if your breaking is not a punishment, but a preparation? What if the pieces you see around you are not the ruins of your life, but the raw materials God will use to build something greater than before? Brokenness strips us of pride. It forces us to confront the illusions we once clung to. Sometimes we build our lives on shaky foundations, on temporary pleasures, on unhealthy relationships, on fragile identities, on success that can vanish in a moment. And when those things fall apart, it hurts deeply. But it also reveals what cannot hold us. Brokenness gives us the chance to rebuild, not on sand, but on rock. Not on what fades, but on what lasts. Growth does not happen in comfort. Growth is born out of pressure, out of fire, out of struggle. Diamonds are formed under immense pressure. Gold is purified only when it passes through fire. And character is forged only when life breaks us open and teaches us to rise again. You may not like the process, but you will love what the process produces. The breaking may feel like it's crushing you, but in truth, it's shaping you. I broke myself to rebuild myself. That was my journey. I reached a point where I had to let go of false strength and admit my weakness. I had to stop pretending that everything was fine and confront the truth of who I was and who I wasn't. That kind of honesty is painful, but it's in that honesty where healing begins. It's in that surrender where rebuilding starts. When you are stripped of everything that is false, you finally have space to build on what is real. And let me tell you something, rebuilding takes courage. It takes courage to admit you need to start over. It takes courage to face people who doubted you and say, this isn't the end for me. It takes courage to look at your own scars and choose to see them not as reminders of pain, but as proof that you survived. Every scar is a story of strength. Every scar says, I walked through fire and I am still here. Your brokenness does not define you. Your rebuilding does. The world may see your cracks, but through those cracks, your light shines. The world may know your failures, but through those failures, your wisdom grows. The world may remember your breaking, but it is your rising that will inspire them most. Do not despise the season you are in, even if it feels unbearable. Every tear, every setback, every disappointment can be used for your growth. The soil of brokenness is where the roots of strength take hold. The breaking of today becomes the breakthrough of tomorrow. And when you rise, and you will rise with more than you had before. You will rise with humility. You will rise with gratitude. You will rise with clarity. And you will rise with a strength that cannot be shaken because it was forged in the fire of your trials. So if you are broken today, do not lose hope. You are not being destroyed. You are being rebuilt. You are not falling apart. You are being prepared for greater things. Stand tall, even with your cracks. Walk forward, even with your scars. Believe, even with your doubts. Because the brokenness you feel today is the foundation of the greatness you will stand on tomorrow. I broke myself to rebuild myself. And in that breaking, I discovered the truth: brokenness is not weakness. Brokenness is the beginning of strength. Brokenness is not the end of the story. It is the birthplace of growth. And if you embrace it, if you let it teach you, if you let it shape you, you will come out stronger, wiser, and more powerful than you ever imagined. So don't give up. Don't let your brokenness convince you that you are finished. The cracks in your life are not signs of destruction. They are signs that something new is about to emerge. You may feel buried, but like the seed in the soil, you are not buried to die. You are planted to grow. Remember, this brokenness is not the enemy. It is the foundation. And from that foundation, you can build a life stronger than the one you had before. Brokenness is the beginning of growth, and growth is the path to greatness. Rebuilding requires courage and honesty. It is one of the hardest and most painful processes any person can go through, because it demands not only strength, but also truth. Many people dream of starting over, of writing a new chapter in their lives, but very few are willing to face the reality that rebuilding requires breaking. You cannot rebuild on a weak foundation. You cannot move into a stronger future if the walls of your past are still crumbling. Rebuilding means standing in the ruins of what was, admitting what went wrong, and choosing to construct something greater with what remains. Courage is necessary because starting again feels like failure. It takes boldness to admit that something in your life must change. It takes bravery to acknowledge that the path you have been walking is no longer leading you where you need to go. Most people remain stuck in the same cycles because they are afraid to start over. They would rather stay in a familiar prison than step into the unknown. But courage calls you to break free. Courage whispers that you are stronger than your fears, and courage pushes you forward, even when you don't know what tomorrow holds. Honesty is equally essential. You cannot rebuild if you are lying to yourself. You must be honest about your weaknesses, your mistakes, your bad habits, and your unhealthy attachments. You must face the truth about the choices that led you to where you are today. Many people spend their entire lives building illusions instead of realities. They build on the approval of others, on temporary pleasures, or on false identities. But when storms come, and storms will come, those foundations collapse. Honesty is the painful but liberating step of acknowledging that your life needs a new structure. Think of a house that has been damaged by time and weather. The walls may be cracked, the roof may be leaking, and the foundation may be weak. Painting over the walls or decorating the rooms will not fix the problem. To truly restore the house, you must strip it down, confront the damage, and repair it from the ground up. That is what rebuilding your life requires. Cosmetic changes are not enough. You must go deeper to the very foundation of who you are and have the courage to start again with truth as your cornerstone. The journey of rebuilding is not easy. It is often lonely. There are nights of doubt, moments of fear, and days when you wonder if it is even worth it. But every great story of transformation is written through perseverance. Every strong person you admire has scars from battles fought in silence. The path of rebuilding is not for the faint of heart, but it is for those who refuse to stay broken. It is for those who believe that their life still carries purpose, even if everything around them has fallen apart. When I think about the times I had to rebuild myself, I remember the moments of breaking. I remember the tears, the sleepless nights, and the weight of disappointment. But I also remember that those moments became the soil for my strength. The very things that once broke me are now the reasons I am stronger. The failures that once embarrassed me are now the lessons that guide me. The losses that once crushed me are now the fuel that pushes me forward. Rebuilding transforms your pain into power and your scars into symbols of survival. The truth is, rebuilding is not just about changing what is outside. It is about changing who you are inside. It is about growing in character, discipline, and vision. It is about learning to trust again, not just in yourself, but in the God who gives you strength to rise from the ashes. It is about realizing that your worth was never tied to what you lost, but to who you are becoming. When you rebuild with honesty, you no longer pretend to be perfect. You embrace your humanity, and in doing so, you discover a resilience you never knew you had. Courage and honesty will carry you where pride and fear never can. Pride will keep you pretending that everything is fine while your life is falling apart. Fear will keep you trapped in comfort zones that are slowly destroying you. But courage will lift you out of that prison, and honesty will set you free. Together, they give you the tools to construct a future that no storm can destroy. So today, if you find yourself standing in the ruins of broken dreams or shattered plans, do not be discouraged. See this as your moment of opportunity. The walls may have fallen, but the foundation can be rebuilt stronger. The loss you feel is not the end. It is the beginning of something new. You may feel broken, but brokenness is the very place where transformation begins. Rebuilding requires courage and honesty, but it also brings reward. On the other side of the struggle, you will find a version of yourself you never knew was possible. You will rise with greater wisdom, deeper compassion, and stronger faith. You will carry scars, yes, but those scars will remind you of the battles you have overcome. They will remind you that you are not defined by what broke you, but by how you rebuilt. Never be ashamed of starting again. Never be afraid of admitting that something needs to change. Rebuilding is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. It is proof that you refuse to let life defeat you. It is a declaration that your story is not over, that your future is greater than your past, and that within you lies the courage and honesty to build something beautiful from the ashes. Rebuilding requires courage and honesty, and with those two, you can rise from any fall, overcome any obstacle, and create a life that is unshakable. There comes a time in every life when the weight of struggle feels unbearable, when the heart is heavy with pain, and when the soul whispers that it cannot endure another blow. It is in those moments that we face a choice to let the breaking define us or to rise and rebuild from the pieces. I want to remind you today that you are not defined by your breaking. You are defined by your rebuilding. When everything around you seems to fall apart, it may feel like the end. But what if I told you that it is not the end? It is a turning point. Breaking is not failure. It is a signal for transformation. Just as gold is refined by fire, life often uses trials to strip away what is weak so that only what is strong remains. The pain you feel today is not meant to destroy you, but to prepare you for the person you are becoming. Think of a building that has stood for years on a shaky foundation. Over time, the cracks begin to show, the walls start to weaken, and sooner or later, it must be torn down before it collapses completely. In the same way, there are moments when our lives are built on faulty foundations, wrong choices, unhealthy habits, or misplaced priorities. Sometimes we need to be broken down in order to be built back up stronger. Breaking is not the loss of your identity. It is the chance to discover your true identity. I want you to picture a seed in the ground. Before it becomes a plant, before it rises above the soil, it first breaks. In the darkness, away from the eyes of the world, that breaking is the beginning of life. Without it, there would be no growth, no fruit, no harvest. Your breaking may feel hidden, painful, and confusing, but it is not the end of your story. It is the soil from which your greatest growth will spring. Many of us fear brokenness because we mistake it for weakness. But brokenness is not weakness, it is a process of renewal. To rebuild yourself, you must first be willing to confront what is holding you back. That requires courage. The courage to let go of who you thought you were, the courage to face the truth about your flaws, and the courage to believe that tomorrow can look different from today. Rebuilding is never easy. It demands sacrifice, discipline, and persistence. It requires you to silence the voices of doubt and rise with determination. But every step you take in rebuilding, no matter how small, brings you closer to a life of strength, integrity, and purpose. You are not the same person you were before the breaking. You are wiser. You are stronger. You are more resilient. The very things that once made you stumble are now the stepping stones that lift you higher. When you rebuild, you give new meaning to your scars. Scars are not signs of defeat. They are proof of survival. They tell the world that you faced the storm, endured the pain, and refused to give up. They are marks of victory, not shame. They remind you that although you were broken, you chose not to remain broken. Your rebuilding will not only change your life, it will inspire others. People are not moved by stories of perfection. They are moved by stories of perseverance. When others see you rise from the ashes, they are reminded that they too can overcome. Your resilience becomes a beacon of hope, a living testimony that breaking is not the end, but the beginning of something greater. Do not let your breaking define your future. The mistakes you made, the losses you suffered, the struggles you faced, they do not determine who you are. What defines you is the choice you make today. Will you stay in the rubble of your past, or will you rebuild a future that reflects your strength and faith? Life will always bring seasons of breaking. No one escapes pain, disappointment, or hardship. But the most powerful people are not those who never break. They are the ones who break and then rebuild with greater purpose. Your story is not about the moment you fell apart. It is about the moment you chose to rise again. So, if you feel broken right now, do not despair. Take heart. This is not the end of you. It is the beginning of a stronger, wiser, more resilient version of you. Pick up the pieces and begin again. Build your life on principles that last: faith, discipline, integrity, and perseverance. Build with courage, and do not be afraid of starting over. Sometimes starting over is the very path to becoming who you were meant to be. You are not what happened to you. You are not the mistakes you made. You are not the pain you endured. You are the person who stood back up. You are the one who fought to rebuild when others gave up. You are proof that brokenness can be turned into strength, that ashes can give birth to beauty, and that defeat can be transformed into victory. Remember this truth: you are defined by your rebuilding, not your breaking. Your scars are your strength. Your struggles are your stepping stones. And your story is still being written. Choose to rise, choose to rebuild, and choose to become the person you were destined to be. The world is waiting not for your perfection, but for your resilience. Stand tall, even if you had to break to get there. For in your rebuilding lies your true greatness.